Welcome to the 7th episode of the Embodied podcast. Today we're here with our friend Anastasia Gerali, whom we just all realized we all have connections to Istanbul. And yeah, so I've met Anastasia, 2 years ago, and we've since been connecting back and forth on various aspects of rapid abundance, activation. And so today we're gonna step deeply into the space of wealth consciousness. So Anastasia is a hypnotherapist, and she studied with Marissa Peer. And from the many conversations we had, I find you, Anastasia, be a very, very refined source of energy when it comes to recoding narratives on how we approach wealth, and to highlight the blockages and the misguided ways of how we have told ourselves stories. And so that's why I'm super grateful for you to be here with us today to look at this, like how can we unpack like what holds us back, and how is it actually much more about being able to receive wealth rather than needing to necessarily hustle or generate it. So we always start with like what it is at your core that drives you in your exploration, and what it is that you bring to the world at the moment.
Thank you. So what is it at my core? Me. Just as at your core, you should be the center of your purpose, and Phil's core, Phil should be the center of his purpose, because that is each and every single soul's divine purpose, is to be the greatest, most expansive version of them. And I feel like the word purpose has been taken outside of us, and it's been linked to what you do. What you do is not your being. What you do is your vision, your mission, that changes and evolves as you change and evolve as a soul, as a human, as a person. My growth, my evolution, my constant expansion is at the core of everything that I do, and everything that I share from a place of vision and mission is from overflow. So that might potentially sound in inverted kind of like commas selfish, but what that actually is self-ish, right? So that is me tuning into my soul's purpose and my soul's journey here on planet Earth, and everything that I share with others is, you know, openly shared, openly given, but it's not my duty, it's not my responsibility to force people to receive that. My energy is actually quite repelling, and it's quite strong and unapologetic, and that is what makes me so magnetizing and polarizing to certain people. And just as there are many teachers out there, it is all about finding the right teacher that resonates with you and with your soul to help you to fulfill your soul's purpose.
I think what you said there with the overflow is really exciting as well, because it's just like boom, it's there. It like you expect nothing in return, and I think that is really, really beautiful. Where it's like, yes, take it or don't. You know, it's there, and if you don't take it, somebody else will pick it up. But I don't need anything. There's no attachment in it, which deeply resonates for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what abundance is, right? Abundance is your birthright, but abundance is also a choice. So when you're conscious in your decision-making process, then you can actually choose to receive gifts. However, many of us are unconsciously choosing to resist, unconsciously choosing to be without. So although we know that abundance is available out there, it doesn't seem to be available in here, in my life, in my reality. And that's where most people kind of get stuck with trying to manifest right from the outside in, when the truth is that you generate from the inside out, and you will always receive what you are able to absorb. If you're unable to absorb, then you'll be limited in what you're able to receive in physical and non-physical form.
This is so profound already. I love it. So I have a question, like the thing that when did it shift for you? Because probably you were in a state where you were unconsciously choosing to not receive abundance, and at one point that whole thing shift for you. Can you bring us to that point? Because I think that would be really interesting to know.
Absolutely. I can literally identify the exact day and time that happened for me. It was summer 2016, and it was literally during the month in which I lost everything that I thought I had worked so hard to achieve in my life. It was the end of my marriage, my beta marriage. It was the end of my business, because I suffered a massive burnout. So I couldn't continue to work the way that I was working. I lost my home, I lost my finances. I was literally left, broke, depressed, unemployed, and unemployable, and physically drained. And I remember sitting on the only piece of furniture which I had at the time, which was my sofa/bed, thinking like, where did it all go wrong? I've done everything by the book. I've ticked all these boxes. I'm a good girl. I'm giving, I'm kind, I'm hardworking, I'm educated. Like, I literally have nothing against me. So why is this formula that I'm using to life not working? And it was unfortunately in my darkest hour which I discovered the flicker of light. It wasn't a bright light. It was definitely a flicker. It wasn't constant. And it was in my absolute kind of self-indulged loss of everything that I was contemplating ending my life, because I figured, if I'm a massive failure on a personal level, on a professional level, then there's really nothing else that I have to give, nothing else that I have to contribute. I am worthless. And that is essentially how I felt. And that was my truth at the time. But it was in that moment that I got the divine insight, the divine message to try a different formula. I was like, I have literally nothing left to lose. I've lost everything that I knew to be true and everything that I worked so hard for. So I've got nothing left to lose. Like, what's more debt? What's less friends? What's less love? I literally felt like I had nothing left to lose. So it was like a game of poker. It's all or nothing at this point. And I already have an exit strategy, because I'd gotten to the point where I'd considered exiting this life. And I had those options available to me. And I was like, well, since there's nothing left to lose, there's already a plan B. Let's try a different formula. And without realizing it, that was when I committed to literally going against everything that up until that point I had been conditioned to be, to do, to think, to have, to behave. And that would challenge my identity, but that would also essentially redesign my reality.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. That's incredible. And I'm happy you chose that option. But probably, even though you say like, I want to do another formula, I'm going to try another formula. Like, like where does your current formula come from? Like,
a lot of trial and error. A lot of trial and error. And I will say that this is kind of like a statement that I use all the time. My success was inevitable because I made it non-negotiable. So I committed to always doing things differently. And eventually what that actually helped me to discover, of course, with mentorship and guidance, this is not a DIY journey, right? You cannot DIY trying to redesign who you are and your reality without support. As we were discussing before, the law of oneness, the law of balance is really about leaning into giving yourself permission to be supported, to be guided, to be mentored. Otherwise, you're practicing disconnection. And that is essentially what I was already living in, disconnection, which resulted in a life and the outcomes of disconnectivity, right? Divorce, financial loss, friendship loss, identity loss, everything was disconnecting, was unplugging from life force energy, which resulted in me wanting to exit life. And I was like, this time it's all about plugging in. That really, really required me to lean into the outer edges of my comfort zone, stepping out of my comfort zone almost all the time, throwing myself into the deep end and learning how to swim. So that is where the formula started to reveal itself, sort of piece by piece, and understanding my unique design and how I'm supposed to be showing up in the world. There is no one size fits all. And this is where I feel like, certain kind of strategies that we may use in business, or certain law of attraction tools and strategies that we hear about, or all these different tools and strategies that are available to us that maybe are popularized in certain circles or in the West, for example, depending on where you get your information from. When you apply those things and you see that it's not working out, and you keep applying them and you keep applying them, that's Einstein's definition of madness, applying the same formula and expecting a different result. And that I was like, I'm not mad to be constantly reapplying a formula that doesn't work, but I do feel mad applying a formula that I know nothing about, and step by step, that really became much clearer to me. It's kind of like walking in the fog. You can only see 1 meter ahead of you. You can't see the whole journey and the whole road. And that's what requires absolute commitment and willingness, and absolute faith and trust, which is a muscle that, probably hasn't been flexed, that will feel weak and will make you wobble. But the more you exercise that muscle, the stronger it becomes. And then you start to gather evidence that supports and validates that, damn, this is my unique formula, and this is the road and the path, which I have to become a trailblazer in, because I've not seen it done before by anybody else. I may have seen examples and tried to apply a methodology or a system that I've seen, or that from the outside in I believe worked for him or her, but it doesn't work for me. So that's where it really requires you to go deep and really ground into constantly checking in with yourself and what applies to me right here, right now, because what is relevant right here, right now may not be relevant a week from now, a year from now, 3 years from now, as you grow and evolve.
Yeah, I think it's interesting what you say there as well about connectivity, because there's sort of like these two components, where it's on the one hand being supportable by others and being basically able to connect with people outside of you. But then it's also this inward journey, like connecting deeper and deeper and deeper, like what's actually true for me. And I feel that is really, really beautiful, this sense of sovereignty in the creation of one's own wealth. And maybe that leads us into this whole exploration of the role of connectivity within wealth creation, but also like, how do you define wealth, or how do you guide people to define their own interpretation of what wealth is?
Absolutely. So, of course, wealth is not only money, but money is a big part of wealth, right? Money is a resource, a tool, a currency that allows me to fulfill my soul's purpose. So if you are spiritually enlightened or awakened, for me, it is your duty to make sure that you're also growing your money IQ, money EQ, your wealth consciousness. Because if you are spiritually enlightened or awakened, you probably have a dream, a desire to share your gifts, your blessings externally. And you can't give what you don't have. So if you're living in scarcity and lack and poverty in the material world, materialism has kind of been demonized in the spiritual world, and it really isn't a bad thing. That's a fantastic thing, because that allows my soul to be the fullest expression of itself, right? My soul has these dreams and desires because it's been called to experience these things. And one of the ways that we can fulfill these experiences and these desires is with the resource of finances to support it. Because we have been brought into the 3D world to experience 3D expansion as well, not just fifth dimension. Everyone's talking about fifth dimension, which is fantastic to be able to tap into that, but you're still living in a 3D body, in a 3D world where the 3D still counts, right? And that is part of your soul's journey and purpose. So wealth for me is really whatever you want it to be. My highest values, because everyone has their own highest values, my highest values are time, energy, money, love. If I'm ticking those boxes, then I'm wealthy. Time, energy, money, love. If I can expand in all those 4 categories, then that is me being my wealthiest, most spiritually expanded version of me.
I love that. Oh my God, I'm deeply resonating with a lot of things you're saying. And what I notice around me, and I think in the world, there's so many shifting right now. There is so many people that lose their relationship, lose their jobs, change things. And for me, it feels like almost like a higher power is putting everyone in their place in a way. Like, okay, no, you're not aligned here, you need to be there. Oh, you're not aligned in this relationship, you need to be there. But it can be crazy, it can be chaotic. People are sometimes 20, 30 years connected to such a thing, and it breaks all of a sudden. And I'm really curious, what would you say to them? What would you say to them? Yeah.
If it was aligned, it wouldn't break. It's only broken because it was unaligned, right? And absolutely, I agree with you. I think the current global circumstances have sped things up, which for me is a really positive thing, because if we can speed up the breaking, then we can speed up the healing, then we can speed up the expansion, right? But most people get stuck on what they've lost instead of seeing what has been decluttered or edited from their life. And I feel like particularly when it comes to certain things that they've attached their identity to, like a certain job or a certain income or a certain relationship that was part of my identity, when that was taken away or that was lost, they spend a lot of time consumed by the grief of the loss versus celebrating the cavity, the space, the vacuum that's been created in your life for you to call in something much more aligned, much more expansive, much more great than what you've lost. And this was actually one of the things that one of my guides told me recently, because I was asking the question. I was like, show me how I can receive more. Show me how I can expand myself so that I can become more absorbent, so that I'm able to receive more. And my guides in a dream showed me the path, and I saw a lot of people going down this path so easily and just picking up things from the side, like a beautiful meadow, and just picking up flowers and picking up things and just being able to carry more. And I was paralyzed. I couldn't move forward. And I turned to my guides and I said, I'm scared of receiving because of what it means I have to let go of. And that was the answer that I was looking for. The fear of letting go is what's keeping you resistant to receiving more. So the fear of letting go of a job or the fear of letting go of a certain income is keeping you limited or resistant to what your limitless potential actually is.
That's so good. I was writing it down. That's so good. Oh my God. Surrendering, letting go. Wow. Now, I know this is also about the rapidness of it. All right. And RTT is all about that. And I think your own wisdom and your own formula is all about that. how can we make this whole process rapid? And did we already discuss all the ingredients, by the way? I don't know if we already have all the things. It feels like it. How do we make it rapid?
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So actually my modality is called Rapid Abundance Activation. It has evolved somewhat since I studied with Marissa, who I love, but I've studied with many other teachers, and obviously I've received my own beautiful downloads, which continue to involve me and therefore involve my work. So rapid abundance healing for me is simultaneous healing and simultaneous expansion. And I find that many teachers or many perhaps coaches out there will be very focused on one of the two states, right? They'll be focused on the healing or they'll be focused on the expansion. But for me, and this is quantum physics as well, quantum physics is when two molecules or two atoms can coexist in opposite states at the same time. And that's what creates that massive impact, that massive friction. So rapid abundance healing is simultaneous healing and simultaneous expansion, and being able to hold that state of healing and expanding at the same time, because that is what creates those massive leaps, those massive quantum jumps into higher timelines, into anything and everything that is available for you. So in terms of the formula, it's not people are trying to manifest backwards. People think that by having the thing, then they can do more things and then they can share more. Or, people who are very well intentioned and want to give to the world, they think that, oh, if I give more and I share more, then I can do more and I can be more. No, it's a very, very clear formula. You need to be, do, have, and then share from overflow. You cannot share what you do not have. You cannot do without being. It has to be, do, have, and then share from overflow. So that requires you to come back into your beingness so that you can first be the greatest, most expansive version of you, and yes, the wealthiest version of you, before you can contribute externally to the causes and the people that you love, that you want to create an impact in the world with through your work. But it has to start with you. If you can't create that impact for yourself, then how big is that ripple going to be into the world of your friends, your family, your children, your clients?
Yes, super good. And I feel a bit of a theme that I see emerging is this whole theme around identity. You said beingness, and you spoke earlier about kind of like needing to let go, or the fear of letting go. So how do you do this identity transformation effectively? Because that's I feel where it ultimately like all comes back down to, like, boom, change who you are and your life changes.
It's not even about changing. What it is really is a deconditioning, right? Because since the day that you were born, specifically your formative years, you were conditioned and trained and brainwashed to be a certain way, right? To act a certain way and to feel a certain way. And your child mind gave a specific meaning to every experience or every interaction that you saw, particularly with your primary caregivers in the beginning. And then the rest of your life was really about reaffirming and validating your program, which was designed from 0 to 7 years old. So for me, it's about deconditioning and coming back to your soul's purpose, right? The cleanest, clearest version of you. It's not who you were born, or it's not who you were brought up to be, or how you were brought up to think, believe, act, behave. Those emotions, those triggers particularly, are those blocks that keep you from receiving. So if you see a pattern of lack or loss or scarcity in your life again and again and again, if you zoom out far enough, you can probably see that pattern replicating in many areas of your life, not just in your finances, not just in your relationships. So if there's a pattern, there's feedback, there's data there which you have failed to read. And if you aren't reading the feedback, the data, and you're trying to fix the output, so you're trying to fix the user interface by installing new programs and getting new information in, what you're doing is you're missing the core of the feedback which you're being given, and that is that your operating system is wrong, right? Your operating system is old, outdated. That needs to be defragged, that needs to be cleared before any programs will run optimally. And if you keep loading new programs without responding to what's happening on a foundation level, it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter what you think, it doesn't matter what hacks you found. And everybody says, oh, 3 mindset hacks that will change your life, or 3 affirmations that'll make you wealthier. None of that shit works if you're not reading the feedback. And the feedback really has a lot to do with your emotions, your triggers, and the patterns which you're failing to recognize. And by the way, emotional people are also extremely easy to manipulate. Right? That is why we're so easily triggered. That is why we're so easily pulled out of our core and our center. And that is why we don't trust ourselves, because we haven't learned how to self-regulate. We haven't learned how to read our own feedback. If you fix the input, the output will fix itself. Most people are trying to fix the output from an outside-in perspective, when really the true magic happens when you go into the coding and you fix the input. The output is a byproduct. The output will fix itself.
I have a question that comes up here. So what you're saying, it's less about defining the new you and more about shedding the old layers away and just landing inside this new you. Or is that correct? Am I understanding that?
Yes, it absolutely has a lot to do with shedding an identity which you've been holding on to, right? An egoic identity, and essentially dropping into your higher self, dropping into your superconscious. When you're living in your superconscious, you don't need to have it all figured out. Things will flow to you and through you, and everything that you can currently imagine for the things that you want for your life is actually quite limited in relation to what you're actually capable of. And when you're living in your higher self, when you're living in your superconscious, more and more becomes available to you. More and more downloads and things that you didn't even consider that you were capable of suddenly become an aligned desire. And it's like, well, could I be the first millionaire in my family, right? Could I be the first multimillionaire? Could I be someone who creates a movement on a global scale and just be the vessel of that to flow to and through?
Wow. I am very, very moved by this conversation so far. I love it. So I want to ask something, because Toby really loves to play with measurements and loves to play with all kinds of things, but also with measurements. And if we place ourselves in the near future, where on our smartwatch or inside our smart glasses or something, we can have a measurement that we will always see. And you can measure everything you want. For example, the connection with your superconscious can be one of the measurements you just have in your. What would be the ultimate measurement for you to have on display there?
I love that. So definitely looking and understanding at my stored vibrational energy versus my transitional energy, right? When we say that we create or we manifest things or we generate things for ourselves, that has everything to do with your stored vibrational energy, right? That is essentially your subconscious mind, if you will, your unconscious desires. And if your unconscious desires, which make up 95% of your mind, are designed to sabotage you, to work against you because they're trying to keep you safe, there's no such thing as a limiting belief. There's a belief that was designed for your survival. So if your stored vibrational energy or your subconscious mind, which is at 95%, is sabotaging you, then it doesn't matter what you're doing on that 5%, you're always going to revert back to your default setting. So this is where going deep into your healing, which happens on that 95% level, and then the expansion happens on the 5% and beyond, right? Because expansion is, yes, it's within me, but it's also omnipresent. It's all around me. So being able to tap into the super conscious is having that direct line with source energy. So for me, really, it's about getting that 95% as clean and clear as possible. So that means removing all resistance, removing all blocks, removing all the unconscious desires to be without, to struggle, to revert back to being small, so that that sponge can be more absorbent, can be more clean and clear. There's always going to be things moving to me and through me. Always, always, always. So I can't say that you'll ever get 95% clarity, right? Because you're a moving, breathing, organic being. So it's about allowing anything and everything to filter through that, but then rinse and repeat, so that I'm always clean, so that I'm always clear. If that sponge gets muddy, it gets blocked. And that's where we find ourselves reverting back to old familiar patterns, because those familiar patterns equal safety, equal survival on that reptilian level.
It's interesting when you say about like things filtering through you and you bringing that sort of circle to being living beings, and it raises for me this question around like nervous system and our fascia, for example, which stores a lot of our emotions. And so do you have deeper insights into sort of like the physiology of, let's say, these 95% of like our mind? Like what even is our mind? You know, is our mind basically the stuff that's stored in our fascia, or is it like what people often refer to, basically the mind kind of being your brain? Like, what are your perspectives on that? And then also like healing. You speak a lot about healing, because I personally have played a bit with like plant medicine modalities for healing, and it's quite interesting to see how that then works on these systems that we have in our body, from like the serotonin system to fascia release, but then also you're doing like hypnotherapy. So I'm curious to hear your perspectives on maybe the effectiveness of certain modalities to actually do that cleansing of these 95%.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, science has already proven time and time again that your body stores everything. Your body is a living, breathing memory bank, right? Not only of your experiences, but also of your lineage, your ancestors, right? That is why we have hereditary, in inverted commas, hereditary diseases, or hereditary dis-ease, hereditary malfunction, right? So when you heal in this timeline right here and now, you're also healing for past generations and future generations. And this is where we literally start to collapse time between past, present, future. The past can never be undone, but the past gives me feedback. It gives me a history to look at so that I can read that data, clear it in this present moment, so that my future no longer needs to be affected. And not just my future, but my children's future. You can literally change your physiology through things like breathing. We know that breath is life. And there's the saying as well, like issues and tissues, isn't there? So when we have issues, that literally lives in our tissue, in our fascia, in our muscles, in our DNA. And the 5 koshas which we can work on is, of course, the physical. So the lowest level of consciousness is your physical being. So that is movement, that is your breath, your nutrition, everything that you give your physical body. The second is your energetic. So that's where we talk about things like Qigong and Reiki, but energy is always moving. So whatever we do on that level is never permanent. And of course, we know on a physical level, it needs to be consistent in order for it to be sustained. It's not like I ate healthy one day and I never need to eat the rest of my life, or I breathed once and I never need to breathe well for the rest of my life. That requires consistency, right? That requires certain lifestyle changes in order for there to be a long-term benefit. Our energetic body, and then the level which I'm very interested in is our emotional body, because our emotional body is the filter between my lower levels of consciousness and my higher levels of consciousness. So my higher self and my zone of genius, my super conscious level, and that is source, divine source energy. If my emotion layer or my emotion filter is distorting what I'm able to see, what I'm able to download, what I'm able to move through, then that's going to limit me on a physical, energetic, and emotional level. And that's going to keep me from tapping into my higher conscious and my super conscious level.
Maybe just to clarify, basically, the emotional layer. So, like, do you then basically refer to like emotion as feelings, or is emotion in your way of looking at it something? Yeah, maybe can you just explain like what emotion means to you?
Yeah. So your emotion is triggered on a subconscious level, right? Your feelings, your mood, these are feedback. They're not real, but they're real to you. And they will essentially determine how you experience the real world or the reality that you're creating. So if we have a pattern of depression, a pattern of anger, a pattern of grieving, a pattern of whatever those lower vibrational emotions are, what that shows me is that those are incomplete emotional cycles. And incomplete emotional cycles will echo again and again and again. So when we're triggered into anger, it's not necessarily because what happened in that moment made me angry, but it reactivated in my body and in my cells something that I've experienced in the past, which I have not yet processed. So these are echoes. The emotion body is your subconscious mind body, right? Which it doesn't matter how much you try to rationalize it on a cognitive level, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't need to make sense, because these experiences or these emotions or the meaning that you gave to the world and to you and to other people was designed when you were in your formative years, where you understood very little about the world. So that was designed when you were 0 to 7 years old. Maybe even that was passed on from your mother, father, grandfather, grandmother, right? So it's an old, outdated belief system that serves to support the reality which you then create and recreate for yourself again and again. So the emotion body is your subconscious mind. And that is why for me, things like plant medicine, for example, help us to tap into that, or help us to move past that filter into tapping into higher consciousness, into tapping into super consciousness. But then we kind of practice a form of escapism by trying to bypass that layer instead of move through that layer, if that makes sense. So for me, that is where like rapid abundance modality and hypnosis and RTT and all these wonderful subconscious modalities help us to understand what we believe or the connections that we've made on a subconscious level. You can't access this on a logical level because it doesn't make sense, and it doesn't need to make sense. The evidence is in the reality. And if whatever you have and don't have in your life is evidence of what you want, and that includes scarcity, that includes lack, that includes struggle. So until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Jung said that. And that is where, for me, working with the unconscious rather than trying to bypass it is your greatest partnership that you could ever form within yourself.
Wow, that's so true. And my last year have been constantly on that emotional level, releasing, and the effects have been profound. So I really love how much you are also targeting this. It's incredible. I want to make it very practical because I know we're talking here about a lot of different things, and we already touched upon that we cannot make it everything logical. But let's put us in a very practical situation. There is someone who, through a shift in whatever, lost their job, lost their income stream, lost their supposed security in their minds, and they have no clue what to do. They know they dreamt about living in nature and, I don't know, starting their own YouTube channel, but they have no income stream and they have no clue how to do that, how to create that wealth to live in nature. So the mind will probably go to, okay, how did I make money before? Maybe I can make money again that way. But that's probably not how it's going to work, because it's probably another misaligned action. That's why they are in this situation in the first place. So how would you help this person in a practical way? So really, like, as if he is in our conversation right now, what would you say to him right now?
Mm. This is interesting because that shows me immediately a low level of wealth consciousness when we think and we believe, and this is a collective brainwashing, by the way, it's not individual. We all have been led to believe that your income is your source of income, right? Your main or only source. And your income is not a source, your income is a stream of many streams that are available. And because of the way that the world has been designed and organized, we exchange our time for money, right? And we work for money. Therefore, we have become slaves to money or to the people with the most money, when money was designed to be a servant to us. And until you redefine and redesign your relationship towards money, you're always going to be dependent on money. Money means nothing without you. Money has no value beyond the value which we've given it. And when you raise your wealth consciousness, that's when you can start to diversify the way that you can create and generate income for yourself, and also make money work for you. If you're still working for money, then you're not practicing wealth consciousness. You're practicing exactly what we've been taught and what we've been programmed and brainwashed on a global level, to be worker bees and to work for money. But money is a beautiful resource which allows us to express our soul's purpose. And we all have gifts, we all have skills. Many of them have been invested and developed, right? So like your job, maybe if you're in IT, that is an area which you learned and an area which you invested in learning. And now that area can bring you one stream of many possible streams available, but that's not your source. Source is you. You are the source, and source is higher self. If you're not connected to the source, then of course you're going to go into that default setting of, oh my God, my main source of income has been taken away. Maybe I'm living off my savings. If I had savings, maybe I did plan ahead and I did future-proof my finances, but more than likely, many people haven't done that. They haven't done that because they haven't had the money IQ and the money EQ to do that. And it doesn't matter if you have the money IQ, if your money EQ is lower than that, then of course, anything that you do with money is going to come from a place of emotional, rational triggering versus inspired, aligned action.
Okay, that's beautiful. But then what would you suggest to them to do right now?
I can't hear you.
Don't I have... Hello, hello? Yes, got it? Okay. So I really love that you pointed to that problem, but what would you suggest to do? What would be the practical step for them to take to do this? Yeah.
Well, diversify your portfolio. immediately, you know, and anything that you do now is planting seeds for tomorrow. You're not going to do something now and then reap a harvest right away. So diversify your portfolio as soon as possible. Saving money is sexy. Investing money is sexy. Spending money is sexy when it's done with intention. So there is no shame in how we diversify. And absolutely, in order to practice, you know, sovereignty, become as independent as possible from the system. So yes, have your main stream of income, but that's not your only stream of income. And if you are an employee, you need to start thinking like a business owner, and you need to start planning for your business, because your finances is your business. Your family is your business. And if you think like an employee in your finances and in your family and in your future, then you're going to let other people and external circumstances always determine your results. So there are always multiple solutions available at any time. If you're problem focused, you're always going to find problems. If you're solution focused, you're always going to create opportunities and solutions for yourself at any given point. The truth is, and the sad reality is, that people aren't willing to do anything and everything in order to open themselves up to receiving anything and everything, right? People are only willing to do A, and therefore they will receive A. And when A is taken away, then they're like, oh, well, I can't do anything else because A is the only thing that I was willing to do. And I'm not glorifying hustle culture, but I am absolutely an advocate for creating opportunities for myself, creating opportunities for other people, and being open to anything and everything that's available to me. And if you present an idea to me that turns me on, then why wouldn't I jump into that? Why wouldn't I give myself permission to invest? Yes, I have to invest a certain amount of time and energy and money and love in order to create that other stream. And most people first want a guarantee before they're willing to invest. That's not how it works. You know, even with stocks, if you're watching the stock market, just because you're watching it doesn't mean you're making money off it, right? You need to practice, trust, and you need to invest first before you will see a return. No investment, no return. So if you're not getting a return, it's because you didn't invest. Or maybe you only invested in one thing, which is why when that one thing, that one basket of eggs fell and broke, you didn't have any other eggs left in any other basket. So diversify your portfolio. Yes, have savings, absolutely. Yes, have whatever else turns you on. For me, it's cryptocurrency, because it's an easy entry point versus property, for example. Anyone can get into that. And, you know, stocks, commodities, if that's something that you are interested in, then make it your job to educate yourself. The information is available to everyone. The entry points are quite easy versus property. Property is always fantastic, but maybe not always feasible for everyone. And then make your money work for you, right? Make your money work for you. So even where I am exchanging my time for money, is there another place or another space where I can exchange my knowledge without my time, right? Consulting. Can I create another stream of income for myself through the skills that I've developed? And most people simply aren't willing to put in the time and the energy to do that, right? They want to work the bare minimum, and therefore they will reap the rewards of the bare minimum investment.
I mean, I definitely hear your entrepreneurial spirit in there as well. That real sense of taking ownership for your personal well-being, and then being able to distribute and share it with the people you love. On that note, before we step into the last question, when people feel turned on by what you have shared, where do they best connect with you?
Thank you. And everybody will feel turned on by what I've shared. They should be, because Making money is sexy, being spiritual is sexy, and being a sovereign being, being the greatest, most expansive version of you is sexy as fuck. And if life doesn't turn you on, then you are a brick. You need to go and get reactivated somewhere, plug into the source. The best place I would say to connect with me is either directly on Instagram or on Facebook. I'm sure that you guys will share those links to anyone and everyone that wants to connect with me. And then, of course, I have my awesome, fantastic 5-day Wealthy and Spiritual as Fuck program, which is a fantastic starting point for anyone that wants to learn a little bit more about the connection between being spiritual and wealthy, and how it is your duty to be those things if you have a vision to create an impact in the world and an impact in your life and in your family. First and foremost, right? Starting with the pebble before we focus on the ripple.
That is beautiful. Amazing. Now, to take something away from the conversation, like, what would you give people as a small actionable thing that they can take away from this conversation to, turn on to their spiritual wealthiness in their lives?
Good. Thank you. So I would start, of course, with abundance is your birthright, but it's also a choice. If you're unconsciously not choosing it, then we need to look at your decision-making process. And then the mantra, my success is inevitable because I've made it non-negotiable. That means that I will do anything and everything to create and generate a life that is worthy of my potential. Not that I'm worthy of, that is worthy of my limitless potential. Your success is inevitable when you make it non-negotiable. So that means looking at who are the people, who are the teachers, who are the mentors, what steps can I take to make sure that that is my end result. Bottom line, there's no but, what if, coulda, woulda, shoulda. That doesn't mean anything. The only thing that counts at the end of the day is what actions you took, what decisions you made. And if you're unconsciously choosing not to have, unconsciously choosing to be without, then we need to look at that decision-making process so that we can realign it with your conscious desires to be wealthy, to be generous, to be giving and kind and expansive and turned on by life.
Woo! Amazing. I really love that. And I made a note of that earlier when you said that my success is inevitable because I make it non-negotiable. And absolutely, like life being the buffet and you just walk along and pick the things that you desire. Beautiful. Anastasia, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your wisdom and your excitement and your energy.
Thank you. Thank you both, brothers.